Today we're talking about the Taurus new moon and Jupiter going into magical Pisces. It's all coming up. Hi, I'm Donna Stellhorn, your practical astrologer, here to talk to you about the new moon in Taurus happening on May 11th, 2021. This is going to be predictions for the next 2 weeks for all signs. There's going to be an introduction in the beginning, and then you'll see the chapters leading you to your sign. Now, if you know your ascendant, your rising sign, I'll watch that one as well as your sun sign. And if you know your moon sign, you might want to check that one out too. That one would be more where you might be drawn emotionally. But if you combine your sun sign and your ascendant sign and watch both of those, you're going to get a fuller reading. Now, for those of you who are new here, welcome. I am doing these videos for the new moon and full moon and giving predictions. I also do videos on feng shui. I have a bunch of those coming out soon. I am the author of 16 books, and there is information about my books and also my readings in the description box below. Now let's take a look at the overview of this chart and see what the energies are going to be like for the next 2 weeks. And this is actually kind of a deceptively difficult chart. It looks like it's fairly benign, especially when you keep in mind that we have Mercury retrograde coming up, and that will be in the next video, and when also we have 2 eclipses coming up. So the next video will be on the lunar eclipse, and then the following video will be on the solar eclipse. So those are very important. I hope you will check those out. So this chart is a little bit of the calm before the storm, but this is a time where, in a calm before the storm, you want to make sure you've battened down the hatches, that you've, I don't know sailing terms, but that you make sure that the sails are furled or unfurled or whatever you would do in case something is coming. Now, this doesn't mean that all signs are going to go through a storm. This does mean, though, that so many people are going to be hitting some rough waters, that even if it's not you, it could be happening to the people around you and certainly having an effect on your life. So it's really good to be aware of the energies going forward. Now, I made that sound like really scary, but it's actually not. We go through eclipses twice a year. Mercury retrograde happens 3 or 4 times a year. And so there's always going to be, let's say, growth periods, and the reason to sail through a storm is so that we become better sailors. So we do want to welcome these growth opportunities. But I know that sometimes when things start to feel like they're humming along and then we hit a bump in the road, we can feel like a little resentful, like, I was moving along so well. But Mercury retrograde especially, and again, we'll talk more about that in the next video, but Mercury retrograde specifically is to have us go back and look over things and do our analysis and say, what worked, what didn't work. And so we're in the period that we're going to be looking back at. And so this is a time to say to ourselves, all right, things feel like they're moving along pretty well. There's a couple little warning lights coming on that maybe we need to take care of a few things or look at things differently or reanalyze things or, just kind of look at how we're progressing. Kind of like, just to do a systems check. I think the most prevalent part about this new chart is that there's very few aspects between, especially the money rulers, which means that while you might be making the same amount of money, there's less ability to accumulate money. Now, this could be because you have been accumulating money over the last couple of weeks or last couple of periods, and now you feel like, well, I need some new equipment, or I need to put some more money into investments, or I want to pay down some debt. And then as you do that, suddenly the income seems to get less, and you're thinking, oh, why is this happening at this time? So, but again, there is this sort of feeling that it can't flow all the time. There has to be ebb and flow. There has to be sometimes when there's abundance and sometimes when the tide goes out again. So this is one of those times where you want to perhaps be a little bit more cautious with your money, just because you don't, even though you don't necessarily receive all of the external evidence to say you need to be cautious. Now, when I look at this more overarching energy, it does occur to me that maybe there'll be a pullback in the stock market, or perhaps even though real estate prices will still be remaining so high, maybe as you're selling your house, you're not getting so many people looking. And this often occurs before eclipses, and certainly the week before Mercury goes retrograde. There's oftentimes corrections in the market, and by corrections, that doesn't necessarily mean going down, although at this time I would expect it to go down rather than go up. But a correction just means that the expectation of the masses of people is different than what is actually happening. And so prices tend to adjust towards people's expectations. And so over the next 2 weeks, I think that there could be some adjustments. So there's a lot of news out there that says both, that the prices are going to skyrocket and the prices are going to tank. And of course, it's going to be somewhere in between. It's necessary at this time, as we are getting some signs out there that say there is a bump in the road coming with the 2 eclipses and with Mercury retrograde. And so those of you who are watching this know this is the time to put the seatbelt on. If you were thinking about going out and doing some wild spending, wait a couple weeks. If you were, thinking about, oh, I'm going to put my house up for sale next month, you might want to wait till after the eclipses and things like that. There's a second indicator that this is a major planning time, and that is because we have 3 significators at 11 degrees in this chart. So that is 2 planets, that's Uranus and Mars, and then we also have Chiron. And so a couple of videos ago, we talked about the master number 22. Well, this is the master number 11, and 11 is the architect of the future. And so this is the person who is drawing out the plans. And so there's a lot of energy here about considering what we're going to do in the future, what our real goals are, so that resources don't just dribble out for some non-purpose. And so with this combination, which is really interesting because it's Mars squaring the Chiron and making a nice sextile to the Uranus, there's energy here about, there's an opportunity here maybe to do some sort of healing. Maybe you've taken a similar action in the past and it hasn't worked out, but this time it could. Or perhaps an action in the past did not work out and you're being offered this again. And so you say, I'm not going to go this direction. I'm going to go a new direction, which would be the Uranus. Now, certainly with the Uranus, there can be a sense of, there can be a desire for impulsive action, and that could lead to that square to Chiron. So you do want to be aware that impulsive action, action without thought, action just on the most base needs could lead to that square to Chiron, meaning, oh, I've run headlong into a wall and now my nose hurts. And so you want to use the Uranus to do something that is unexpected maybe to others, but not necessarily unplanned for yourself. You don't want to go against your own plans. It's fine to surprise others with, you working on your business or, asking somebody out or something like that, but not necessarily to, see a leather jacket in the window and blow your rent money on it. Now, Mars is also involved in this interesting dynamic with Saturn. So Saturn is making Saturn's not making it. Mercury is making a trine to Saturn, and then Mars is making the inconjunct to Saturn. And so, of course, Saturn is the epitome of long-term plans. It's what we're trying to build and create, and it's that taskmaster. It's the tall mountain that we're trying to climb. And so with the Saturn-Mercury combination, there is good plans. You can make really good plans, But then there's an inconjunct between Saturn and Mars, which means either the implementation of these plans is not going well, or during the implementation you find that you have to adjust. And so this could be, either that you say, all right, I'm planning to, work on my screenplay all day. And then you start playing, a little video game and the day goes by. That would be the action doesn't line up with the plan. Or it is that you plan to write your screenplay but you find that as you start to write it, that the character arc is taking you in a different direction. And so that would be the adjustment. That would be something to explore. So that's the difference between, or it's not even the difference, that's the dynamic of this configuration. So in this chart, Jupiter is at 29 Aquarius. It's going to go into magical Pisces on May 13th, and it will stay there till mid-October. Now, this is a big shift in the energy because whatever Jupiter touches, of course, it expands, it brings luck to, and we have had that in the sign of technology and community and all of that for a year. And so we've been very, very focused on how to make connections and community through technology means. So, we've all gotten on Zoom and this is how we now talk to our grandma and that sort of thing. So now it's going to just dip its toe into Pisces and then come back into Aquarius just briefly and then move forward again into Pisces. So during the time that it's in Pisces, it's just more testing the waters. It won't be fully there. So, but we will see an increase of interest in health matters because, of course, Jupiter expands. So there's going to be even more talk about health, but also things dealing with spirituality, music, design, theater, also magic. And by magic, I'm talking very loosely, and that is where you are using spiritual means such as, affirmations, meditation, prayer, lighting candles and things like that to affect a physical change. And I think that's a very powerful thing to do because you are aligning your physical self with your spiritual self and of course your mental self because it's involved in whatever it is you want. So when you combine these different aspects of yourself, you become much clearer and you're not this kind of jumble of mixed emotions and feelings that just even for a moment you are aligned, and that is very powerful. So we can all play with this while Jupiter is in Pisces. Now, Jupiter being in Pisces, it has not been there for 12 years. So you can start by looking back 12 years ago and say, what was I doing when Jupiter was in Pisces last? So you also will want to look at your chart and see which house Jupiter will be in when Jupiter is in Pisces to let you know what area gets expanded, where can you gain knowledge, where can you learn more things. And then finally, which I hadn't mentioned, probably should mention right at the beginning, it is of course a Taurus new moon, and it's making a sextile to Neptune. And this, first of all, the Taurus new moon, of course, lights up this energy of finances, possessions, what do we have, what do we want, what do we not need anymore, and how this is all rolled up with our self-worth or our sense of deserving. And it's making a lovely sextile to Neptune, which Neptune is the point of having no boundaries, of where you can feel like you are affected or connected through to many, many other people. And so this is kind of the collective consciousness in the world really affecting everyone. Well, I shouldn't say really because it is just a sextile. It's not a square. So, but with that, if everyone is shopping, you may feel more tempted to shop. If everyone is going minimalist, you may feel more tempted to get rid of stuff. And that's just because of this influence from Neptune. Now, Neptune on the positive is these things. It is about spirituality and connectedness and feeling at one with everything, but it also is about fogginess and fear. And so if you find you are stepping into that fear zone, it can be that other people around you are feeling fearful about something, or the news is telling you that you need to be fearful, and you don't need to buy into that. You need to recognize that when you have no boundaries, that stuff can seep in. And so then you want to mentally set up a boundary to say, okay, I remember who I am. I remember I'm confident that, I can take care of myself. I know that I can go find sources of income and, ways to feed and clothe and take care of myself and my family. When you're trusting yourself and you know that you deserve, then the Neptune is this positive force. But if you are caught up in other people's drama, and sometimes their drama is just to get you to buy something, and so you have to look at the motivations behind that and say, all right, is this person really telling me something that's valuable to me, or are they just stirring up the emotions? Because if that's the case, just go watch a movie and get your emotions stirred up that way. All right, let's go around the wheel. Okay, Aries natives, you guys are doing this new moon in your house of money, and that means there is some new money opportunities that are coming up in the next 2 weeks. This is a time to be looking at maybe things that you have done for a long period of time and check in to see if they're still what you should do. This energy of the new moon is where you're planting a seed and you don't know if that seed is going to germinate. You don't know if you're going to get a crop from this, but you have to plant the seed anyway. And you might have taken a lot of different precautions and said, how much research can I do on this? How can I, assess the road that I'm about to take? But with Uranus going through this house also, and albeit very, very slowly, it does mean that you do have to try some new things and take the risk of saying, I'm going to put time or money or effort into this anyway, even though I don't know if it's going to work. So it's important this time to really look at some of your money habits and say, is this really working for me? And with the sun and moon there, kind of putting yourself into an alignment of saying, if your goal is to save for a house, then don't go buy the expensive car, So if your goal is to travel the world, then again, maybe don't buy the house, So because if your goal is something and you take resources from that goal and impulsively put it into another place, it confuses the universe. The universe doesn't know what opportunities to send you because your actions have not fit your words. Now, as we talked about in the opening, if you watch that, we are very much doing that energy because Saturn is making the trine to Mercury and the inconjunct to Mars. And that does mean that there is this sort of difference, this kind of like irritating little semi-sextile difference between what you're saying and what you're doing. And so that's where the doing has to have an adjustment. When it comes to relationships, you are not doing a lot of really strong energy. I am going to say that throughout this video, so do not think that I'm picking on you in any way. Everybody is showing this sort of bump in the road, but you're not showing an aspect between Venus and Mars, and so therefore the energy is off. That means the timing is off, and that means you're supposed to be working on something else. And so, yes, this is not to be confused with, hey, relationship is my main goal. This is the thing that I want to do more than anything. And now, Donna, you're telling me the timing's off and I shouldn't do it. But that's not what I'm saying. It is to look for a different way of doing it. And that is, if you've really been pushing out and saying, okay, I'm going to go find dates, I'm going to go find people to have a relationship with, maybe now step back and say, how can I grow myself? How can I shift my own self to have better connections with these people, or to go back and look at people that you have met in the past and check in on them and see how they're doing. Now, when it comes to your home life, you have Mars in Cancer now going through your house of home and family. So there is going to be a lot more activity in this area. It's, with all the aspects, or I should say non-aspects that are happening, there's going to be some miscommunications and things are not always going to happen in the speed that you want. But there is still your ability to do things, and that is through adjustment. And that means if you can't get the parts to fix one, repair that you're trying to do in the house, then what else can you do? It's an old saying, when fishermen can't fish, they mend their nets. And that is, what other useful activity can you do? Or if you're having trouble with one person in the house, maybe connecting with somebody else, either who is outside the house, an extended relative, or to look at different ways of connecting with this person who's in the house. When it comes to your money, you have Uranus, Sun, and Moon in the second house, so you probably have the best money chart of the 12. I'm not gonna, you're the first sign I'm doing, so I don't know for sure. But yes, this is, you have good prospects for bringing in more money than usual. It is a little challenge to retain that money. I'll talk about that in a second. But you are pulling money from that Venus in your third house, so that means communication, contracts, and agreements are the main reason that you're pulling in more money. So perhaps you're getting a new job, and so you are negotiating for a higher salary. This can be that you are talking to people who owe you money and bringing the money in that way. You could be calling up your credit card company to get lower interest rates or something like that. When it comes to income from your business or investments, you are not doing an aspect between Venus and Pluto, nor an aspect between Venus and Mars, so you are not making more money than usual. But with your good chart, I think that you are still seeing the money flow. So perhaps the money is, it's earmarked to come to you, but it hasn't come to you yet. Or there is some opportunities that are more long-term. What I do see is communication is key. So that means that perhaps you are supposed to be paid more money than usual, but through communication or, through lack of communication, someone's not paying you. Or if it's an investment that you need to keep up with the data in the investment, otherwise you may miss an opportunity. So again, this isn't the end all be all, because you have such a great second house. So I don't want you to get concerned about this, but I want you to recognize that your timing or your communication could be a little off. And so you want to kind of be aware of that, and that can help. Now, when we look at money derived from career, you have the last little bits of Jupiter being in that house. In just 2 days, it's going to move into your 12th house. And so there could be something that's transitioning in your job. Maybe you get word that there could be layoffs in the future. I think you should take that very seriously. Get your resume ready. If you hear that a contract that you have with a company may not be renewed, there is going to still be some chances of that, because Mercury will go retrograde and Jupiter will be back in your 11th house pretty soon. Mid-October, not super soon. But, just be aware if you're receiving signs, that's the universe protecting you. That's the universe giving you a heads up to say, pay attention, because there are changes happening. Additionally, Venus is not making an aspect to Uranus, so you're making about the same money as usual. And when it comes to risky investments or investments that take a lot of time, effort, or money to make happen, the ruler of this house is in your house of money, so there is a chance of taking some profits. However, they could be small because the sun is not making an aspect to Venus. And so again, I have to say that most of this is like paper profits and not actual money in your pocket, and it will take some communication to actually secure these funds. Okay, Taurus natives, this is your new moon, and this will set the tone for your lunar year. And so that means that the things that happen over the next 2 weeks could be a sign of how things will go for a 12-month period. So you really want to make the best of this by not allowing stuff so much to happen to you as you be the architect of your future. And so go out and plant seeds, go out and make contacts, connect with people, etc., because that's what's really going to set the tone for this lunar year. And of course, again, as I said before in the opening, if you watch the opening, these are seeds that you're planting. You have no idea whether they're going to work or not. You don't know if they're going to germinate. But, as the farmer of your life, you still have to plant seeds. You have to try. And so that's the energy of this new moon in your first house that says, even if you're not feeling confident about this direction going forward, it's okay to put your toe in the water. And if you do feel confident, then definitely move forward with, deliberate determination. The other things that the new moon in your first house do is it draws attention to your physical self, and that is your constitution, health. Are you exercising? Are you taking care of your body? And, it's in this world of convenience, it's actually more challenging than ever to take care of your body, but it is so important. It's back in my grandmother's time, when she was hungry, she had to go get a chicken and pluck the chicken and then cook the chicken, and it was a very long process. And now, you're phoning up DoorDash and in 15 minutes you have food. And that's really nice to be convenient, but then you can make some choices that are not healthy for yourself. And that can not only affect your physical constitution, but also your mood and your brain power and all of that. So the Taurus energy, which is really connected to the land, that's connected to the earth in so many ways, says, how are you bringing that fuel to your body that your body really needs? So that's another of your focus for the next 2 weeks. When it comes to relationships, you are not doing an aspect between Venus and Pluto or Venus and Mars, and so therefore relationships are a little bit on the back burner this time, and that's not surprising because your ruler here, Venus, is in your house of money, and that means that money or security or your stuff is the focus. And maybe that does cause you to interact with your sweetheart. Maybe you're a minimalist and they're not, or you want to buy something and they don't. So there's still some relationship activity going on for sure, but in general, when you're out there trying to meet someone, your best bet for meeting someone is to meet them in something where you're both doing something that's financial. So, like you're garage sailing together, or that you are attending some sort of investment seminar or things like that. Otherwise, the timing's going to be a little off for these 2 weeks. When it comes to your home life, you are pulling energy right from that sun in the first house, and that is that there's a little bit more attention to how you feel in this family, and whether you feel things are fair, whether you feel that people are treating you well. And so there's more of a sense of what am I getting out of that. And while that might sound very selfish, it might not be something that you do very often. You may be very devoted to other people and not recognizing that you have value and that you need to be a person who is respected and loved as well. This is that adage on the airplane of, put the oxygen mask on yourself first and then you can help everybody else. So if you have been just giving, this is a 2-week period where you need to stop that for a moment and see what you're receiving in return, and see if that exchange is something that is valuable to you, if you really feel that this is worth it. And if it's not, to sit down with the person and have the conversation and say, hey, I seem to be doing all the chores and you're watching Netflix, and is there a way that we can work this out? versus, nagging at them or getting angry or things like that. So, communication with Venus currently, the ruler of Taurus, currently in Gemini, gives you the opportunity to communicate this. So you want to take that opportunity. So when we look at your money, you are pulling money from that Mercury that is in your second house, which does mean that you can draw money to you. And so I do expect that Taurus and Taurus rising could bring in a sizable amount of money, and possibly from multiple different sources, because Venus is there as well. And so this is good news. But when we look at the different places where we would normally draw money, first at where you would draw money from business or from investments or things like that, Mercury is not making an aspect to Jupiter, and so therefore this doesn't seem to be a source where you're getting more money than usual. You may be getting you're probably making a little bit more money because you do have a good second house, but you're not making a huge amount more. And the interesting thing is that there's something shifting about it because it's ruled by the Jupiter, and Jupiter is making a big change. So there is something shifting in your investments or in your business that you have to pay attention to, which potentially could bring you lots in the future. But right now, during the shift, which could be that you decide to go into something new related to your business, and so you have to buy equipment or get education or things like that. But all of this has a reason. If you will say, all right, I want things to grow, that's where you can really pick up some future money by planting the good seeds this time. When it comes to money derived from career, you have extra luck because the Jupiter is going to cross into your house, giving you more protection and all that. That does not keep you from getting laid off, but it's more likely they're going to give you notice about it. It doesn't keep you from losing a job, but you can find another job quite easily. So the Jupiter doesn't protect you from the event, but it gives you the life raft. It gives you like that Tom Hanks experience where you make the life raft out of your suitcases so you have everything with you. So the Jupiter is that sort of protection, and that's what's coming. But when we look, Mercury is not making an aspect to either Jupiter or Neptune. So again, we're showing that money is not being accumulated like it has been in some of the previous weeks. And so there is a weakness in this. Again, I don't think you're making less. You could be making a little bit more. However, there's some cracks in this foundation that you need to pay attention to. Now, your best area is with riskier investments or things that need a lot of time, resources, or energy to make happen, whether you're selling a business or buying a business or something like that, because that is ruled by that Mercury in the second house, and that does mean that there is something being communicated to you, possibly a contract or something else that could really help you move this forward. So you might get an offer on your business, or you might find a business at a good price, but that's your best area this time, is these riskier investments. Of course, with risky investments, you do want to do all of your due diligence. You have Pluto up in your house of contracts, so do be careful. Find an expert to help you with negotiating any sort of deal that's big, because with the Pluto there can be some sneaky things in the contract that you want to be aware of. Okay, Gemini natives, let's take a look at the Taurus new moon being in your 12th house. Now, this means that it is lighting up the house of planning and of endings and of where you go within to clear out the things that you need to so that you can move forward. So this is the month before your lunar new year, where you will have that energy of the Gemini new moon, and which is actually going to be an eclipse, and we'll talk about that in a future video. So right now, this is highlighting those parts of you that are more private, and that's not for the world to see, but for you to see. So maybe you are looking at how to get more quality sleep. Maybe you are looking at what your dreams are telling you. Perhaps you are incorporating some spiritual practices into your daily life. You may also have some thoughts that you would consider to be very negative, or that anyone might consider to be negative. And this is something for you to look at and say, what's causing me to think this, and is this helpful? So, because even if it's yourself that is causing and keeps generating these negative thoughts, it may not be helpful for you. And so therefore it would be worth letting go of. Now, one of the things that happens when the new moon is in the 12th house is that you have the opportunity to do some planning. It is not so easy to actually take action out in the world because it's energy that is considered more hidden. But how I see it is, it's also energy that is less likely for you to control. And that is that the 12th house has less boundaries, more connection to, the universal consciousness, the universe itself. And so things that you release into the world have a chance to go viral, but they are so hard for you to control. And so that is that when you do, post something on social media or something like that, you want to be careful to make sure that it's uplifting, that it's true to your beliefs, that you're not just tossing something off without really considering the implications of it, because it can go much farther than you're expecting. Now, of course, this is Taurus, and you always have Taurus in your 12th house, but it's always a good idea to look at self-worth issues and financial issues, especially if you're kind of shoving those things under the rug, if you are not paying attention to them. And so this is a good time to look at your bank statements, look at your budget, but also, look at how you're treating yourself. As we were saying before, if you're having a lot of negative thoughts, are those really helpful? And start to inject positive thinking into your life. When we look at your relationships, you have Venus right in the first house, which means that others are finding you more attractive and your charisma is high, and so you can attract somebody to you. Now, Mercury is not making an aspect with Jupiter, and that's not necessarily a problem because Jupiter is changing signs. So what this could be is you may be attracting people you have known before and not the new ones you're looking for, or you're attracting the type you used to like, but not the new type that you're looking for. So, but if you're patient, because Jupiter is going to flip into a new sign in just a couple of days, then things could change. Additionally, this could mean that somebody who really likes you now gets kind of busy, and so you have to be patient with them because they'll come back around. When we look at your home life, you are pulling energy from that Mercury and Gemini right in your own sign, and so it looks like family togetherness is really important right now, that you are having more chance to interact with family members, even extended family members. There could be talk about what you're doing with your home, or maybe you're helping a family member move. So there's lots of different activities going on, but there is a lot of harmony that's happening as well. Now, when it comes to finances, you have Mars going through your second house, and it's going to do that yet for a little while. And this means that you have such an opportunity to grab hold of new financial revenue streams, new job opportunities, all kinds of things. So you really want to kind of give into that focus to go find the money. Now, Mars in the second house can also cause you to spend money. And so you do want to be aware that you may be, thinking about buying something either more impulsively, or it's been on your list for some time and now you're ready to pull the trigger, but make sure that it does still fit into your budget. Now, also, your second house is pulling money from that moon in the 12th house, and that means that maybe money isn't the most important thing to you right now. Perhaps you are not paying attention to your budget, even though in previous months you did. You may have a little bit of fatigue of, being frugal and stuff like that. So it also does say that perhaps there is some money that you have not been able to get your hands on. So someone's promised you the money, the check is in the mail, that sort of thing. And it's necessary for you to keep an eye on that and check for it. And that's the thing that's going to stimulate that activity. The final thing with this moon in the 12th means that you can use some magical things or feng shui or things like that to get in harmony with the energy. And that would be, to dust off your lucky money frog, to do a meditation for money, or to do affirmations. There's that happy money technique where you leave $1 someplace for somebody with a little note that says this is happy money, and then money starts coming back to you. There was a book on that. I'll see if I can find that book and put a link in the description box below. When we look at money that comes from a business or from a family business or from investments, the aspect's not lining up. The Saturn is not making an aspect to the moon, and the moon is buried in the 12th house. And so it can make decision-making difficult in this area. So be careful of making any rash decisions. Additionally, it can put delays on receiving money. It doesn't mean the money is not going to come at some point. It just means it may take a little bit of effort for you to get it. You know, they could send it to the wrong address, or they could give you the wrong amount, or things like that. So it's just the money is taking a little bit more work than usual. This should clear up, as we move forward. But for now, there are some challenges in this area. When it comes to money derived from career, you are doing the Mars with no aspect to the moon. So, and this is the theme this time. It feels like all the signs are struggling a little bit with money. And so this, as I said in the intro, could mean that there's some sort of drop in the stock market, or there are, some general depressed numbers. Again, money flow, it comes in and then it goes out. And so there's always an ebb and flow to money matters. I mean, the plus here is that the ruler of your 11th house is in the 2nd house. So of all the signs, you're likely to make more money from your career than most people. But this could be connected to having more hours, so you're working more, or this was something that was promised to you a while back and now is finally coming in. And then finally, when we look at riskier investments, these are the exotic type of investments and things like that. This is ruled by that Venus that is just now in Gemini. So you do have some opportunities here to see the money. You may not be able to get your hands on it because there's no aspect between Venus and the moon yet, but there is this energy that it's close. And so you might be looking at contracts now, you might be doing final negotiations, or you could be getting your feet wet with a very small investment, which is what I would recommend, until everything lines up really nicely. And then it would be safer to do a larger investment. But right now, testing the waters is good. But I like the energy that Venus is now in your 1st house, where everything's upfront and easy to see. So this could be the time to do that investment. Okay, Cancer natives, this new moon is in your house of technology, friendships, community, and the future. And so starting with the technology part, it does give you an opportunity to investigate new technology now, or maybe you had something for a while, you've had a device or some piece of software, and now you're going to start exploring it. And that's what this new moon says. It says, you can grow in skill and abilities in this area. Of course, there's also going to be an emphasis on friendships. And so you do want to look at, if there's been some disruptions in that area, Uranus is going through this house for you, and so that can make some disruptions over time. Uranus is a very slow-moving planet, and now this new moon is lighting up that energy. So perhaps someone has just kind of faded out of your life. You were really close, and now you're not, and so you might be thinking, oh, it's time to get back in touch with this person. This is also about the community and how you're getting involved in the community now. Of course, your community may be under lockdown, in different areas. Things are opening up and then they're locking down, etc. And, this is also a possibility as we get closer to June, actually late May and June, because Mercury will be retrograde and we have 2 eclipses. So we are expecting some pockets, especially of areas to, either go into lockdown or to be in a place where you can't, just in all good conscience, you can't go out and do all the things you wanted to do. It's just, this is just the reality now. This won't be the reality forever, but it's the reality now. And so looking at what you can do in the community, and maybe you can't do it right away. Maybe you have a meetup group and you're still meeting online. Maybe you're starting to discuss meeting in person, but you have to be flexible. And that is one of the problems here, because the Taurus new moon is not flexible. So even if you're being flexible, then you might find that other people are not, or you're needing to stand your ground on some point, and everybody else is saying, oh, please be flexible. So you may have some interesting interactions due to this. Now, the final thing, of course, is that it's in your house of the future, and that means that you should be looking at where you want to be in your life a year from now, where you want to be 5 years, 10 years, or you can even look at it and say, all right, from my age 90 to 100, what do I want to be doing? From 80 to 90, what do I want to be doing? 70 to 80, what do I want to be doing? And as you do that, and sticking to the positive when you do that, you might say, well, from 90 to 100, I want to take up painting, I want to be able to see my friends, and I want to have more time to read books and things like that. And so by putting something positive in your future, then the universe helps line up opportunities to make that happen. So taking a look at your future is a good idea at this time. Now, when it comes to relationships, I'm seeing some good energy, because the ruler of your ascendant, of course, is in that 11th house of friendships, but there is no aspect going on between Moon and Saturn this time, and so some of the timing is off, especially for intimate relationships. You may find that, that you schedule getting together, but it doesn't happen, or that hanging out with friends shows better energy than having deeper or more intimate relationships. But again, this energy will shift. So, when you have a 2-week period where the timing looks like it's off, like it does right now, then focus on other things where the energy is better. When it comes to home and family life, you're doing that energy from Venus in the 12th house, and this means you're spending a little bit more time at home, and it's quite enjoyable. There's that you might be having, some of your kids who've been away at school, maybe they're coming home now, or at least preparing to. Perhaps you are talking about their upcoming graduation, and, communicating a lot, maybe not necessarily actually coming together yet, but everything is in the works. This also gives you more time for, doing things in a solitary manner. So because you have so much friendship activity, it's nice to have a little alone time too. And this could be that maybe you're having some time off at work, or perhaps you are just, prioritizing sleep, which is always a good thing to do, and giving yourself a little bit more time for leisure. When it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that sun in the 11th house of money derived from career, so that is really good news. That's going to be your strongest area this time. Money that comes directly from a job, or whatever you say your career is. This is especially true if you work for somebody else, so you may be bringing in more money when you are working extra hours, or perhaps you've had an hourly increase, or maybe some sort of bonus. Now, when we look at your investment income, we have the co-ruler of Aquarius in the 8th house, and that would be Saturn. And so there is also some possibilities of additional money through investments and through business. Plus, Jupiter for a few more days will be in that house, and that is bringing you some extra luck. But we don't have an aspect between the Sun and Uranus this time, so holding on to this money may be a little more challenging. So keep that in mind when you are doing investments, that there could be some real ups and downs, and it'll be better to hold on for the longer term versus trying to do something that you're trying to get out really quickly. Now, it's also interesting to me that when we look at your money derived from career, the ruler of your 8th house is in your 11th house. And of course, this is going on for a long time. That's that Uranus. But to me, it says to remind you that there might be perks within your job that you're not taking advantage of. And these could be, some small thing like maybe it's a discount on your phone service or discount on your auto insurance or something like that. But these small things can add up. And there may have been some changes in those different perks recently. So that is something to consider looking at. Now, when we look specifically at the house of money derived from career, of course, it's an excellent house this time because the new moon is there. It is pulling money from that Venus in the 12th, which does say that you might be needing to work behind the scenes a little bit to finish up a project, or maybe you're working on a weekend or something like that, just to get stuff done and put to bed. So it's necessary perhaps to put in some extra time so that you can impress the boss and basically get some projects off of your to-do list. I think that financially, again, as it seems like all the different houses are connected to each other this time, and that's really beneficial for you. It's not as easy if we had the rulers directly talking to each other, but I think this is strong enough that you will show more money during this period than previous periods or than usual. And you are one of the standout signs this time because very few of the signs are doing this. Now, when it comes to riskier investments, and those would be things that are very exotic or things that take a lot of time, money, or resources to get going, you do have some excellent energy because the sun is making a trine to Pluto. And that means that you really do need to push forward on this. Now, Pluto is in your 7th house, which means you do need to go talk to the people who are experts at this. Find the person who's done this before, who's willing to mentor you. Find a partner to work with this and really listen to them. Now, with the trine energy, finding this person is just a matter of reaching out into the community that you know already and see where you can find that 6 degrees of separation, where you can find the person who knows the person you want to meet. I guess technically that would be 2 degrees of separation, but you get the idea. And from this, you can make some real headway this time. So this is where you do want to lean in. Of course, be careful about signing, huge agreements and convoluted contracts. You do have Neptune still going through your house of contracts, and that can make things a little hard to understand, either because you're not a lawyer or because it's been written by lawyers, and therefore it can be really complex. Okay, Leo natives, you guys are doing this new moon in your house of career and reputation right at the top of your chart. This is very comfortable for you guys because it is lighting up the place where everybody notices you. It's kind of like walking around with a big spotlight on you. And so that's fantastic. It's the best, of course, if you do have something that you want to present out into the world. And so if you are saying, here I am, I want to post my resume, or I want to express my feelings for you, or, I want to be top of the list when I'm bidding for a house or something like that, this energy is great for that. If you are trying to work behind the scenes, this is going to be more challenging. So keep that in mind. You are not going to be able to hide from the world. In fact, even if you go to the grocery store, you might be noticed and recognized. So you might want to, put on your better clothes when you're going out and about. Now, the Taurus new moon energy is always about finding that balance between bringing in money and feeling comfortable, because bringing in money is a great deal of work at times. And so how can you feel comfortable? What is enough to have? What's the status that you want to have in the world and still, have the time and energy to do the fun things that you want to do. So this is very much asking you to balance, how much you are focusing on your career. Are you doing that so that you can play later, which is a valid life choice? Or are you looking at, how do I balance my work and play life? And that's also a good life choice. So I think that the challenging life choice is to be procrastinating on the things you truly want to do and frittering away the time. So you are missing out on opportunities that you do not want to do. So this chart here lends itself towards, putting something out into the world and getting some results, and that gives you great feedback for what you're going to do next. So that's why I think you have some great opportunities this time. Now, when it comes to relationships, of course, you're easy to find, and that's great, but the timing is off because there is no aspect between Sun and Uranus. Now, I say that, but they are at least in the same sign. So I do feel like you can get the phone communication going, you can text each other, but your schedules may be too busy to actually get together, and so you need to be patient about that. The other issue could be that Jupiter is going to move from your 7th house of relationships, into that house of intimacy, and so one of you may want to move the relationship forward in a direction that the other person is saying, whoa, this is moving too fast for me. And so as you discuss it, I think you can find a happy medium. Remember, this is, perhaps a place where you do want to find that balance of the energies. But if the other person is quite insistent, then you may have to wait them out. When it comes to home and family, you are pulling energy from the Pluto and, of course, the Mars. And we'll talk about the Mars mostly this time because Mars is going through your 12th house. That means you are more intuitive about family members, but you could also be more sensitive when they say things. And so, if you have somebody in your family who is really blunt or, just in your face sometimes, this could be something where you take it personally, or, that you can't help feeling that you're under attack. Little interesting side note, myself and another astrologer were working together to create a report or book, or we're creating something about communication using astrology. So I'll be telling you more about that pretty soon. But right now, what this is you might have to step out of a confrontation or out of an interaction just so that you can regain your emotional footing and let the other person, go do whatever they're going to do. So it just recognize you could be overly sensitive, or you could run into somebody who has no sensitivities whatsoever. And so finding the balance in this will be helpful. When it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Mercury in your 11th house, which is the house of money derived from career. So that is a really good sign. That means that the majority of money is probably going to come from your career. So if you have a regular job and you have a side business, you're going to see more money from the job, even if that side business had been catching up. So there is that little bit of, you might feel disappointed that suddenly the business is doing less and the job is doing more, but don't think that way. This is just, there's more emphasis on money that comes from a career. Now, if you do own a business only and you don't have a side job, this is an indication that you need to work side by side with your employees, that you have to do less of the managing and more of just the working shoulder to shoulder with them. And that's going to bring you more money. And maybe that is just getting into the weeds of it to see if your procedures are working, if your processes are efficient, if something should be delegated or eliminated, or things like that. When it comes to investments, and as we were just talking about, business income, it's not as strong this time because Mercury is not making an aspect with Neptune. So what I'm expecting is that you are putting a lot out there, maybe for, new apps or processes or hiring people or things like that. But it's you showing some weakness in income in this area. So you want to be more conservative in your spending if possible, or, if you've already earmarked the spending, then just realize that future times, future moon transits, I don't know what to call it, our future bi-monthly meetings will bring different energies for you. Now, one of your best areas is money derived from career because you have Venus, North Node, and Mercury there. And so you have the strongest ability to make money from this area. As I was saying before, if you're looking for a new job, it is likely you're going to get an offer and you could negotiate for a higher salary or at least more time off. And so you really want to lean into that. If you have been thinking about getting a new job, please don't wait. This is excellent energy with the Sun and Moon elevated and such a great house of money derived from career. This is the perfect combination. So over the next 2 weeks, you really want to blanket the place with your resume. Make sure that you tailor your resume for the individual job. Do a cover letter if that's appropriate. Make sure that there's no spelling errors, that the grammar is correct. Do what you can to give them that perfect view of you. When it comes to risky investments, and this could be like buying a business or selling a business, or perhaps you are doing something that is growing very, very slowly and is taking a lot of your time and energy, this is ruled by that Jupiter, which is going to go into Pisces, which we talked about at the beginning. If you listen to the introduction, it's going to change signs and it's going to become more beneficial for you, but it's not quite there yet. You have a couple of days. And even though it changes in a couple of days, the energy for this new moon is signified by this chart where it's not there yet. So you want to be quite careful because what it says, the bottom line is that something is changing about your deal, about the contract, about the people you're working with, or the marketplace itself, and that needs to be paid attention to. You need to see what's changing and then reassess whether you're still going the right direction. So you want to be super cautious about making any decisions at this time, even though that movement, that shift of energy as Jupiter goes into the other sign or the next sign, it's going to feel kind of compelling, like you're being pulled along by the undertow. But we want you to just hold fast and just wait and see what this new energy brings. Okay, Virgo natives, you guys are doing this new moon in your house of education, legal matters, travel, and the belief system that you have, basically your internal rules. And so let's start with that. And with the Uranus going through this house for so long, there's always this energy around you, or not always, but for the last couple of years and definitely for future years, where you want to examine your personal rules to see if, one, you created them or were these imposed on you, and two, are they still valid in your life? And so asking yourself those questions, or those questions like you know what they are, like my mind. So asking yourself the two questions, is it true? And then the second question is, even if it's true, is it helpful? Those questions, if you ask those questions to your rules, or about your rules, you are going to get some valuable information to determine whether your rules need to be changed. So that's I think the main point for this Sun Moon being in your 9th house. Of course, this also could mean that you are doing travel plans. Whether those are going through or not is kind of hit or miss because Uranus is there causing some disruption in this area. It can mean that you are working on a legal matter. Perhaps you are deciding to file suit, or you're trying to close a suit. And there are some positives about all of that, but it's still, the energy is pretty wonky. So you want to move very slowly and deliberately. There's, other people may try to rush you at this time, but you want to take baby steps. And when it comes to education, if you're doing some testing and things like that, it's really highlighting how you are preparing for your tests. So are you really buckling down in these last few weeks before a test to make sure that you know what you're doing? Or is the siren call of partying just too much for you and pulling you away from what you should be doing? So this Sun and Moon up there does give you the ability to either sit down and study or to find ways, like helpful things out on the internet, like study tips or those study with me videos. I don't know if you've seen those where some medical student somewhere in the world who has to study a lot of stuff, puts a camera on themselves, and you can study with that person by just putting it in the background. There's no talking, usually some nice music, and they're very effective because you feel like you're not the only person in the world studying at that moment. When it comes to relationships, the energy is really changing, and overall, it's going to get more positive, especially for a little while, and then that energy will retreat. I'm talking about, of course, Jupiter. Now, of course, initially we would just be looking at the relationship between Mercury and Neptune, and they're not making an aspect, but the co-ruler of Pisces, which is your 7th house, is that Jupiter, which is going into Pisces in just a couple of days. So the energy feels right now like it's you see what you want. It's just a little bit out of your reach. And so that could be that the person you want to go out with, they want to go out with you, but the timing's not quite right, but it's so close. Or that you and your sweetheart are having discussions and you're getting very close to compromise or really understanding each other. It's there. It's almost like you can taste it, but you can't quite grab hold of it this time. But in the next 2 weeks, things will shift about that. Now, this energy of Jupiter moving into your house of relationships also affects home and family because it's ruled by that Jupiter. So we do have a lot of change going on around home and family. This could mean that you are packing to move, or you have just moved and so you're unpacking. Somebody may be moving into the house. Maybe kids are coming back from college or something like that. Or somebody might be moving out of the house. There could also be some changes around the house that you're doing, like some sort of renovations and things like that. So we have a lot of shifting and changing energy when it comes to home. When it comes to your money, you are pulling money from Venus that is right at the top of your chart. Fabulous position. It means that the money can find you, that you are easily seen. And that is that if you put your name on something, if you said, this is my project, you get noticed. And so this is the perfect time to market yourself, or if you're looking for a new job, to put your resume out there. Plus the fact that, of course, Venus means that people find you attractive and interesting and fun to be with. And I love the fact that it is so close to the zenith of your chart, which does say that this is the ideal time to be putting your name out there. When it comes to investment income or income from a family business or money derived from your business, Venus is not making an aspect to Mars, but now stay with me here. Mars is in a money house and Venus is in a career house. And so even though these two aren't talking, there does seem to be some money coming to you because we do have money and career activated. So as long as you are quite conscious about this, you can connect the dots. And that means you may do some marketing and then money comes in from another direction that you weren't expecting. So your analytics may look a little funky. It may look like you got zero engagement in one area and then suddenly something you did a while ago gives you the engagement. And so it may not feel like it connects. But this is because it's making this sort of odd connection in your chart this time. So when it comes to money derived from career, we have a similar sort of energy going on because Mars is going through your 11th house, which means you have the energy to take the action necessary to make more money in your career. So, but Venus is not making an aspect with the moon, and so therefore there seems to be still a little bit of a disconnect. So I think maybe there's more of a promise of it, or we'll see, or perhaps there's some paperwork that has to be filled out, and so HR has your raise, but they're sitting on it right now. There is some sort of delays, but I do see that you are closer to it than you have been before, and with the Mars there, it may be just a matter of you making a phone call or sending out an email to get things moving. Now, when it comes to riskier investments, and that includes your Bitcoin, your NFTs, your, if you're buying gold or silver, bullion, or things like that, all of those things that are less conventional, like if you're short selling or something like that, those types of investments, we don't have an aspect between Venus and Saturn is in your house of work, of course, and so it says continue to do the work on it. Now, with the Venus so elevated, you could attract some expert to help you. That's great, but I would like some sort of connection with the seventh house or even a money house, and that would say, oh, you're going to make some money on it. Right now, this is more that you are telling people that you're interested in it. Maybe an expert is saying, I'm going to take you under my wing, but it's challenging for you to knock on the door of an expert and say, please help me. That one's going to be tough. But if you say to the world, hey, I have this artwork and I want to put it on the NFT exchange, then, somebody might step up and say, oh, I really like your artwork and I've already done this, and so I can help you with it. So look for it that way. I hesitated because I was thinking ETF, NFT, there's so many different letters floating in my head. Of course, an ETF is an exchange traded fund, which is it's kind of like a mutual fund that trades like a stock. And a lot of ETFs are actually a safer way to do the stock market because, index funds and things like that. Whereas an NFT, which is a non-fungible token, is where you can set something as the original, and therefore it can be bought or sold because otherwise you couldn't tell that it was the original. Anyway, I don't know a huge amount about that, but I would categorize NFTs as being an exotic investment, therefore fifth house, and therefore you're not doing an aspect at this time. Okay, Libra natives, you guys are doing the new moon in your house of resources. Yay, that's a money house, and so that's fantastic news. That means there could be a new source of income, especially a passive income source or a business source of income. But you also could find a source of income through something with family members or a family business or something like that. This is also alerting you, though, to look at insurance and to see if you are insured adequately. It also reminds you about taxes and things like that, like if you are new to entrepreneurship, that you're saving for your taxes. It is also about going in and looking at your investments and saying, are these doing well for me? Is there something where I need to invest in or divest from? Or are these investments that I'm comfortable in? Where do I need more education? That sort of thing. So, that's where it's highlighted. Of course, the eighth house also is about intimacy and relationships. So let's look at relationships. When we look at relationships, you are not doing an aspect between Venus and Mars this time, but as I was just saying, you have the new moon in your house of intimacy. So it's quite possible to meet someone for an intimate relationship, but right now it may not turn into a long-term relationship. So if a long-term relationship is your goal, be a little careful about being intimate too quickly, because that could get you into a confusing situation later down the road. If you're fine with a one-night stand, this is your time to do it because you have positive energy in that area. When it comes to your family life, everything is focused on children or creativity, which it has been for a while. So if you're single and don't have kids, it is about what are you creating? Are you building a house right now? Or are you doing a lot of creative stuff at home? And of course, if you have kids, there's a great deal of focus on kids. It's interesting because the Saturn is making that trine to the Mercury and the inconjunct to Mars. And we were talking about that at the beginning, the introduction part. So if you skipped over that part, you might want to go back and listen to that. So this could bring some positive connections about school for the kids, but some difficult connections with their jobs. So if you have school-age kids, then we've got some good news. But if you're helping a kid find a job, or if your kid is struggling with getting a job, then you may need to help them and make some adjustments in their expectations or their resume or what they're looking for to help them out. When it comes to your finances, you are pulling money from that Pluto and Mars is right at the top of your chart in your house of career. So if you're looking for a new job, you have great opportunities for finding it. Now, the interesting thing is that because you have a really nice ninth house as well, you may get to skip over some of the educational requirements for the job. In other words, send out the resume, even if you don't have, the bachelor's or master's or whatever they're looking for, because they may say that they have a program that you can take that's accelerated, or you may fit by your experience and they'll waive the job or the education requirements. So definitely go and apply for the job. If you are working on other things, like if you're not looking for a job but you have a job, know that you're quite noticeable, at least your actions are, and so you want to make sure you get things in on time, that you're very proactive. Don't let reports or things like that fall by the wayside, because you are being observed, and you could be being observed for a promotion later, but they're keeping an eye on you right now, so you want to be mindful to get your stuff in on time. Now, as we already said, your house of investment income and business income is quite good. Now, there is no aspect happening between Venus and Pluto, and no aspect happening between Venus and Mars. So, I think the money is out there. Maybe it's not coming within this 2 weeks, but the money is promised, the invoice is sent, or they have sent the check, but you haven't quite received it yet. But this area is strong, and you may consider raising your prices for your business, or again, looking at your investments, as we were talking about before, and seeing if your investment money is in the right places, in the right buckets, the buckets that you believe are going to go up. Maybe talking to some people who have more experience in this area and see what they say, and then weigh that with your own intuition and your own research. So I like the 11th house for you this time. Sorry, I just said 11th. I like the 8th house this time for you, but I think that the majority of money is coming outside this 2-week period. Now, when it comes to your money derived from career, it's fantastic because the sun is ruling the 11th house and it's in the 8th house. That means it's in a money house, so you have really good energy. Plus, the sun is making a trine to Pluto. So you have, like the two things that we really, really need to make more money in your career. So I really expect you to make more money over the next 2 weeks in your regular job. This could come from some sort of perk, a bonus, maybe you're getting vested, maybe an increased commission schedule is kicking in, but you seem to be making more money. And so if you have been thinking about negotiating for a raise, this is the time to do it. Now, when it comes to riskier investments, now we have to talk, because you've got quite a few things going on. Of course, the ruler of your 5th house is in a money house, yay, but it is not making an aspect to Pluto. So, but Uranus, which we were talking about, is actually making a sextile to Mars, the co-ruler of your 2nd house. So I know that was a lot of jargon, but what that means is there's a possibility. Now, why I say there's only a possibility is because Jupiter is leaving this house in a couple of days. And so something about riskier investments, and that would be, exotic investments, or, buying a franchise or something like that. There's something changing that is going to materially affect what you're doing. And so you want to just be quite cautious. Certainly over this next 2 weeks, don't sign on the dotted line. And I say the next 2 weeks, even though Jupiter will be leaving in 2 days, because this chart represents 2 weeks. And so it's saying that the Jupiter's in a critical position it's saying it can't do anything until the information that you're going to receive changes. And so that's why I say something important is going to happen. It's going to affect your decision, so don't make the decision yet. Okay, Scorpio natives, you guys are doing this new moon, of course, in your house of relationships because it's the opposite sign. And so relationships are highlighted. And this means that you can meet new people, you can start a new relationship. It's all good for that. But if you're in an existing relationship, it means that you can go to a new level in this relationship. And from an external standpoint, that might mean, starting to live together or getting engaged, but it also means where you stop and say to yourself, how should I be communicating with my sweetheart? What is it that seems to trigger them all the time? Do I have to say that way? And sitting down and saying, why does this trigger you? Interesting side note, myself and another astrologer are working on a whole program about communication through your astrology chart, where your Mercury is and all that. And I'll be doing an announcement about that pretty soon. So looking at your relationships in general is really excellent, but it does say that with a little bit of work, a little bit of effort, you could uncover something that makes your relationship so much better. When it comes to home and family, the interesting thing is, of course, the same things that I'm saying all the time, which is, Uranus, it doesn't move very much. It's in your 7th house. Saturn, the co-ruler, also doesn't move very quickly, and it's in your 4th house. There is some interesting things happening, though, this time, and that is, first, that Saturn and Uranus are doing this on and off again square. And so they're pretty close together. And so you're still kind of feeling that energy. And that is, what is what constitutes home? Is this the best home for me? What constitutes family? Do I include spiritual family? Are these friends more family to me than my actual family? Or is the actual family, the solid unit that we don't let new people into, or something like that? Like really deciding where you should have a very strong structure and where that structure should be torn down. Now, the really interesting thing, though, about your home and family is that Jupiter will be leaving this house, at least briefly. Now, it means right now that Jupiter's at a critical degree, so you might be selling your house, or you might be looking at whether you should build your own house, or maybe change how you live entirely, maybe downsizing a great deal, or maybe getting a much larger house and renting out some rooms. So there's clearly some energy shifts going on, and it's hard to see right now what those are going to be. So you might want to pause for a moment and say, I think I'm just going to wait a couple weeks and see what shakes out about this. And that will help you decide whether you're going the right direction or not. Now, with Jupiter leaving this house, though, I would say decluttering is going to be very helpful. What you can let go of will lighten a load in the future, so that would be one thing to focus on. When it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Jupiter that we just had that long discussion about, and so you can see that there could be a huge shift in how you make your money or where your sources of money are in the next few weeks. Now, the interesting thing is that this, of course, is a temporary move. So you might just have the inkling that this could happen in the future, and it may not manifest this time. In other words, you might get some income from your business and then it dies off again, or that you get some sort of word that there are going to be layoffs at your company, but you're not in that first round. But you should be aware that the source of your money could be changing because that Jupiter is moving. And so you do want to take whatever precautions that means to you, which could be diversifying income sources or getting your resume ready, or, solidifying your position at where your job is now. Now, you have a great house of investments and business income because it's Venus, North Node, Mercury. Love that. There is no aspect, though, going on between Jupiter and Mercury right now. So I see that there's potential, and I think you'll be making a little bit more than usual, not huge amounts. So that could be some profits from some investments, or, as I said, maybe your business, your side business, suddenly kicks up a notch and you think, oh, this is going to take off, but it's not going to take off off just quite yet, again, because this energy hasn't quite solidified. It's changing, so it's in that point of transition, but it will come back, and then, you know, you'll say, what happened? Why is this not working? But it's just so that you can dip your toe in the water, see what that feels like, make some adjustments, and then later you'll be able to go full in on this. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, you do have your planet that rules that house in a money house, which I love. That means that there could be some perks or something directly related to your job that brings you more money or more benefit that might not be an increase in your paycheck. So it could be, you know, discounts on insurance, or it could be that you get vested in some stock or something like that. Now, additionally, this Mercury is making a trine to Saturn, and so there is something where you might be told, you know, like, here's your track for getting more job, for getting a promotion, or for getting, you know, more recognition at your job. So you might hear of some way that you can down the road make more money, and as you start to do that, you'll see more money flow in. So I do think that you can be optimistic about money flow from your career. Now, when it comes to money from risky investments or from, you know, things that are quite exotic or take a really, really long time, there's no aspect going on really between Jupiter and Neptune. Now, a lot of that is going to change when they are both in the same sign. But this is the chart for, you know, this next 2 weeks. Even though in just 2 days, Jupiter will go into Pisces, this chart represents the next 2 weeks because it is the new moon chart. So what I'm expecting is that it's going to feel like there are profits out there that you can take. Like somebody says, oh, I am interested in buying your business, but then they dawdle around or they're on vacation or something. They're just hard to reach. And so nothing's really happening yet. So there's a promise of making money, but it's not manifesting yet. And you need to be patient while the energy shifts. Okay, Sagittarius natives, you guys are doing this new moon in your house of work and health and routines and the processes that you'd use to get through your day. And that's what's highlighted now, is it's looking at your habits and saying, you know, are you effective, or, you know, what could you begin to have better habits? How can you streamline processes? This kind of puts a spotlight on it to say, you know, what would be the easiest way of doing things, or what's a different way to do things that make it more interesting to do. And that's a big focus. Now, this also, of course, is your health. And so that's putting a spotlight on that, saying, you know, what new information is out there that's going to help me with my health, or what do I know that I need to change so I can be healthier? You know, think of the new moon like planting a seed, and so the seed doesn't sprout right away. It takes a long time for you to actually, you know, get the tree with the fruit on it and all of that. So that is, you know, maybe you're starting to exercise and you're not seeing results and you're getting frustrated, but this is something that you need to do over the long haul. And so that's why this energy says plant the seeds now and then the benefits come later. Now, when it comes to relationships, the chart is excellent for you. Venus and North Node and Mercury are in your house of relationships, and Mars is in your house of intimacy. And so if you are looking to meet someone, this is the time. You can attract somebody who you find is very intriguing and interesting, and passion can happen. And so this is a great time to, you know, go online or let somebody fix you up and meet somebody new. This energy is also beneficial for your existing relationships. It's like you're getting along better, you're communicating better, and this can help the relationship overall. You know, just a sidebar there, myself and another astrologer were working on a program for better communication using astrology, and I'll be talking about that in the future. But for now, look at, that's my cat sneezing, by the way. Look at how you are communicating and the habits that the two of you get into, because you can make a major breakthrough in your communication, and with that become, you know, more understanding and thoughtful about what supports the other person, and they do the same with you, which will deepen the relationship and make it stronger. When it comes to home and family, it is pulling energy from Neptune and Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is, of course, our star these days because Jupiter is at 29 Aquarius. It's about to go into Pisces, into your house of home and family. But right now, it's at the transition point, and that means that things are changing. Now, that can mean that somebody's moving out or somebody's moving in, or maybe you're thinking about moving, changing residences entirely. Maybe you're thinking about doing a whole different lifestyle, and that could be like you're getting ready to move into a yurt or into a van or into a mansion and then rent out all the rooms, or maybe you want to move into the countryside, or maybe you need to move down by the beach. So you're thinking about lots of these things, and this is the time more to be talking about it and planning it, not quite doing it yet, over the next few cycles where we will be meeting together to talk about the full moons and eclipses and all that are coming up. You might put your toe in the water and start to investigate things, but the actual move still could be months away. So try not to pressure yourself too much about it. I mean, if you're already in the process of moving, fantastic. That's great. So then, you're obviously an early adopter. But if you haven't yet, then just wait and start to really think about what it is you want to manifest, and then give the universe some time to find that perfect place for you and to put the two of you together, the place being a you and you. So places are people too. When it comes to your money, you're pulling money from Saturn. Of course you are, and I talk about this every month, but you remember, when we talked about in the introduction, that Saturn is making a trine to Mercury and an inconjunct to Mars. And so if you didn't watch that introduction, you might want to go back and listen to that. But in a nutshell, that means that you have the idea, but the implementation of the idea is not so good. And so that is, you might have a great idea to connect with somebody, but how you go about to try to connect with them doesn't work. They send you send a message on Facebook, they're never on Facebook, and so they don't see the message, or that sort of thing. So you want to make adjustments in how you are taking the action on your ideas. That's what's going to bring you money this time. So a great deal of focus of saying, what are my plans and where am I flexible in those plans? So if something doesn't work out, or if I hit a wall, that I don't stop, but that I say, all right, well, how can I move around this obstacle? How can I go over it or under it? What can I change to make this work? Now, when it comes to money that is from your investments or your business, you have Mars now going through your 8th house, which is fantastic because that is you actually taking action to make money. Wonderful. Now, it's not ruling, of course, your 8th house, so we don't have an aspect between Moon and Saturn, so you're not making more money than usual, but you are actually taking action and planting seeds, so that's the good news. Those seeds will grow into your harvest later, so continue to plant seeds, and that is, if you're doing marketing or things like that and your analytics seem really low, don't worry, because you could get the big burst later outside of the window that you were thinking. And so it doesn't mean that your advertising is incorrect or even wasted. It is just that you are planting seeds and you're going to see the harvest later. When it comes to money derived from career, you are pulling energy from that Venus that is right on the descendant. That means the more people you talk to, the more money you have potential to make. And when it comes to a career, that would be somebody telling you that there's a position open at their company, or that you could transfer within your company. Basically, the more you are connecting in a positive way to others, the more you make. Now, there is not an aspect going on between Saturn and Venus, so all of this manifests outside of this 2-week period. It's again, I have to go back and say this is about planting seeds, and in this case, it's planting seeds with individuals to say, hey, in the future, I might be interested in some sort of promotion or a new job or something like that, and then give that seed some time to grow. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and that is the unconventional investments or things that take a lot of time, effort, or money to get going, now we have some interesting energy. First of all, the ruler of your risky investment house is in a money house. So that says that there are money opportunities opening up. And I would specifically think that these are going to be around loans, especially government loans, or, loans where there's mutual people putting in. Boy, words are really tough for me today. Things like crowdfunding or, GoFundMe campaigns or things like that. That's what we're seeing here. Now, the interesting energy is that there is an inconjunct between Saturn and Mars, and that means adjust. That means that you are thinking that I'm going to reach into my freezer and pull out ice cream, but you have no ice cream. All you have is salmon in the freezer. And so you either have to make your dessert out of salmon, which is not that easy to do, or you have to get on your clothes, get in the car, and go get your ice cream. So you have to do some sort of extra activity to make it work. And so that is, the most profits are made in your risky investments when you put the work in this time. And that is like clear your schedule and maybe, X out some of the fun and really, focus on, how to do this business or how to do this investment or something like that, because that's your key to making profits this time. Okay, Capricorn natives, you guys are doing this new moon in your house of creativity, fertility, children, and risky investments. Woo! So, something that we talk about a lot on this channel. So, of course, this means it's a great time to do all things that are creative. If you want to have kids, this is a time where you could either have more luck in that area or find the medical help that you are looking for. This is about, something new, starting something new. And so if you are going through fertility treatments or things like that, this is the perfect time to get those things started. So now it's also a time where you want to put your creativity out in the world. And so if you've been interested in trying some creative endeavor, it's time to start this. Now, of course, I want you to recognize that when you start something, you're not going to be as good at it as you will be after you've practiced a long way. And when we were little kids, this didn't bother us. But for some reason, when we're adults, we think that we're supposed to be good at something right away. So give yourself the time and put the time in so that you can become good at it if you really like it. Now, one of the things that's interesting is because it's Taurus and it's always Taurus in your house of creativity, you may constantly be looking for when you feel comfortable enough to put it out into the world. And I'm going to tell you, you're never going to feel comfortable. That's always the challenge. If you're looking to feel completely confident, like I don't care what people say and all that, that's never going to happen. It is familiarity that breeds the comfort. And that is that if you have put things out over and over and over again, now you are comfortable with whatever people say. So this is your opportunity to get past that, to say, I don't care if I'm comfortable or not. I know that over time I will be comfortable. Now, when it comes to relationships, I really like the chart for you this time because the 7th house has Mars, and technically the 5th house is that kind of relationship where you're just dating, we've just met, and that's the new moon. So you do have some really positive energy. Now, there is no aspect between Saturn and Moon, and so that does mean that getting into a long-term relationship over the next 2 weeks is a little more challenging. This is energy for meeting the person, starting out, planting the seeds, and seeing where it goes. This is also, if you're in an existing relationship, to add a little bit of romance, because it is something where if you put in the romance at this time, that it could be something that brings the two of you together over the course of the next few months. So you want to do the things that make you happy. And maybe it's not romance. Maybe it's just something that you both enjoy doing, which you haven't done in a while. And so the emphasis is on these sort of things. When it comes to home and family, it is represented by that Mars at 11 degrees of Cancer, and we talked about that master number 11 in the introduction. So if you didn't listen to that part, you might want to go back to that. So for example, this Mars is making that square to Chiron in the 4th, and that is that there is some sort of healing that can take place, and the master number indicates that there is some sort of planning that you can do. That's the master architect that says, you know, what is the design of what I want my family to be like? What do I want my home life to be like? And a healing can take place. So this could be about how you're interacting with people you live with, or how you just want the house to look. And maybe this is, you know, a combination of getting some storage solutions and getting rid of some stuff, and then the house is as you want it to be. So someday we'll talk about, you know, how I redid my kitchen to keep the kitchen tidy, because I do feng shui videos on this channel, and I have some coming up. But if you guys are interested in that topic, just let me know and I will expedite it. So, but back to you, the most important person. It's why I'm making these videos. It is Mars square that Chiron. So as you take action with your family, or as you take action in the home, the healing manifests. It is something that's automatic. Now, when it comes to your money, you have a lot of excitement going on because, of course, your money house pulls from that Uranus, which has been in your 5th house of risky investments for some time. Now, the excitement is that the new moon is there as well. So this lights up this house, bringing you some new information, something valuable, something you needed to know about the longer term things that you are either doing or want to do. So I do feel that there are some big possibilities here. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to do something that's super risky or something like that. This could be that you are taking that personal risk of putting some of your creativity out there. Sorry. Sometimes I stumble over words and I just want to keep going. What can I say? So sometimes you are not considering so much the big risky investment, but this is about taking a risk and putting your art out into the world, or, you know, releasing your song or something like that. And so now this house is highlighted. So really consider that now is the time to take the risk and do that. When it comes to investments and money from your business, while there is no aspect going on between Uranus and the Sun, they are in the same sign and they're in the same house. And that means that there is some opportunities going on. And even if you just get a promise, that is a promise that could be fulfilled it's more likely that it's going to get fulfilled than usual. So that is, the promise isn't an empty promise. So I think that you can move ahead. Of course, you know, if you are doing a whole bunch of work just on spec and you don't know the person, you may want to take some precautions about that. Or if the investment is outside of your comfort zone, you do want to take some precautions. When it comes to your money derived from career, while you don't have an aspect between Uranus and Pluto, you do have an exact aspect between Uranus and Mars. It's a sextile, which means there's an opportunity. It doesn't mean it automatically happens. So this is about going to somebody, the Mars in the 7th house, and asking for, you know, the raise, asking for the better position, or asking the advice of, how do I get into a position where I can ask for a raise? So it is about taking the risk to say to, you know, a supervisor or a colleague, or maybe somebody who is way up in the company, and say, what steps do I need to take to move up in this organization? So this is just a sextile. As I said, you have to initiate the action, but because there is a sextile, you could receive something back where you hadn't in the past. Now, when it comes to risky investments, we already talked a lot about that with the Uranus, Sun, Moon there. There is no aspect going on between Uranus and Venus, but the Venus is in the 6th house of, finding out what you need to do to get it going, doing the work, doing, like what's the back office, what are the paperwork that I need to complete and all of that. So looking at your business that way to say, all right, I don't know if this is going to really work. Maybe you're selling a company, maybe you're building a company or something like that. So, but what are the kind of behind the scenes things or the back office things that I need to do and to work on those? I still think the energy here is lining up quite positive for you. Of course, I don't want you to jump in fully because you're not making that aspect. I think this is just a time to move forward on this, but not expect the huge results until everything lines up. Okay, Aquarius natives, you guys are doing this new moon in your house of home and family, and that means that this is highlighted for you, that there's some sort of new beginning. That could be that you're thinking about moving, or perhaps you just moved and you're unpacking and getting settled in. It could mean that somebody's going to be moving back into the house or somebody's moving out of the house. It could mean also, because Uranus has been going through this house for some time, that you are looking at a complete change of lifestyle, that maybe you're looking at moving into an RV or moving into a cabin in the woods or a high rise downtown or something like that. So it's time to really examine this. And if you're not actually in the process of moving yet, maybe that's not exactly happening yet. It's saying, though, because it's that Taurus energy of, what can I afford? What do I think I deserve? Where do I feel comfortable? It is expanding this idea of what you deserve. It is being clever about what you can afford. And it is understanding that you're not going to feel comfortable with these ideas until you've done it. So if you can pull in those energies, you can find that you make some interesting and beneficial choices for yourself and your family. When it comes to relationships, now that's all focused on this area of home and family. So that could mean that you and your sweetheart are moving in together, or that there are some changes. Perhaps your spouse is taking a job on the other side of the country, and so you guys are going to be separated by distance for some time, or that you are coming together with an ex because you're sending the kids off to school or something like that, or coming together for graduation. I guess that's more the time of year right now, is graduation. And so with relationships, there is something where, like you're dating and you're introducing them to your family, that sort of energy is happening. Now, the energy is still positive. It is you actually considering the people that you're dating and saying, could I live with this person? Would I feel comfortable introducing them to my family, and so forth? So there's more of this energy of you considering the date or the person versus actually doing the dating. In fact, in your chart, everything except for Pluto is below the horizon, and that means you're a little bit hard to be seen. So when you put yourself out in online dating and stuff like that, you have to give it an extra little burst of energy, maybe through meditation or chanting or prayer or lighting candles, because chart-wise, you are tough to see. Everything is below the horizon. I'm having a little deja vu that we talked about this last time, because that's where everything is, and it's going to be there for a little bit. This does make you a little bit self-contained, so much so that what can happen is you say, I don't know that I need a relationship in my life. And yet part of you may still want it. And so you have to kind of weigh those ideas within yourself. Where are you so self-sufficient? You don't need somebody in your life. And if you become so self-contained that somebody can't get in, is that really what you want? Do you want to be the island? And having periods of time in your life where you are an island is perfectly okay. But if it's not what you want, then you want to take steps to, build the bridge. Okay, when it comes to home and family. Of course, I just talked a whole bunch about that. It's pulling energy from that Venus in the 5th house. So kids and creativity are really strong as well. And so this means that there's a great deal of focus on, what the kids are doing. Maybe they're graduating from school. Maybe they are getting ready to go off to college this summer, or maybe they are just changing schools. Maybe you're looking at fertility and expanding the family and things like that. Additionally, this is about, what kind of creative things are you doing at home? Maybe you're building yourself a studio at home, or you're finding some way to lock the door so that you can get some quiet to do your writing and things like that. Because Venus is going through this very happy kind of party sort of house, you could be planning some parties for in the home. That could be that you might be having a birthday celebration or some sort of barbecue in the backyard, or thinking about how you can gather some family members who you haven't seen in a while. When it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Neptune and Jupiter. Of course, Jupiter is our star this time because Jupiter is at 29 Aquarius, about to enter Pisces. And so that means that there is a possibility that your main source of revenue is going to go through an alteration over the course of the next few months. Now, that is a possibility. It is not a guarantee because Jupiter will back into Aquarius, back into your 1st house. And so if you're getting some sort of notifications or hints from your current employer that there's going to be layoffs or that there's going to be changes that you're not on board with, then you do want to take some action and start looking for something else. If, on the other hand, this is just some sort of inkling that you have that you want to be doing something else, now's the time to just start planting those seeds, because you can get some positive reinforcement when Jupiter does get into your 2nd house, and for that period where you can see, okay, this is the right direction to go, or this is not the right direction to go, and I need to make some course adjustments. When it comes to money from investments or from a business, there's no aspect going on between Neptune and Mercury or Jupiter and Mercury, but the Mercury is in your house of risky investments. So there's some sort of connection that either the investments that you're thinking of are becoming risky for some reason, or that your intuition is saying this is going to be a really volatile investment in the future, and so maybe that's a sign for you to divest yourself maybe of part of your holdings, or to step back and see if you can find some expert to help you kind of figure out if this is going to be a good investment in the future. If this is more around business income, then the Mercury in that 5th house could indicate it's time to do something more creative with your business and to look at how you're marketing the business, or what your products are, or what your service package is, and see how you can differentiate yourself in the marketplace by going a different direction. When it comes to your money derived from career, it is ruled by that Jupiter that we've been talking about that will be changing signs. So again, this is our 2nd indication that your main source of income, if that is money derived from career, could be changing. And so you want to be paying attention. That could mean that shifts in your industry are going to materially affect your job, or that your company is being bought and that is going to affect your job. Maybe you are going from being a full-time employee to a contract employee. Perhaps you're going from a full-time employee to some sort of freelance where you don't even have a contract. So you want to be quite aware of all the signs that you're going to be receiving, not just over the next 2 weeks, but over the next few months, because this is going to tell you what's going to be happening in 2022. Now, we're going to talk a lot more about this in the weeks to come, so I hope you will check out the videos each time they come out. And when it comes to your money from risky investments, of course, we talked already a lot about that. I like this house for you this time because it's Venus North Node Mercury. I think you can get a lot of ideas and information, but there's no aspect happening between Mercury and Neptune or Mercury and Jupiter. So to me, that means that you're collecting information now, not necessarily acting on it. So it's like, get the contract, but maybe wait to sign it, especially because we have a couple of eclipses coming up, which are going to be videos on those soon, and Mercury's going to go retrograde. So this is more the time to say, what do I know? What do I need to know? Versus, all right, I'm ready to jump in. Okay, Pisces natives, you guys are doing your new moon in your house of communication, and communication is near and dear to my heart right now because myself and another astrologer are working on a big project about communication, about how you communicate with others and how to make it easier to communicate with anybody else. So I'll be telling you guys more about that in the future. Right now, communication is highlighted for you, which does mean that you're going to receive some information that is quite important, and one, you need to not react to it emotionally. Two, if you sit with it for a while, the other person will reach out to you and clarify things. So there is sometimes a desire to react and say, hey, why did you send me this? But if you just sit on it, they may come back to you and say, one, that they were having a bad day, which may not be an excuse for them, or they may say, you know, now that I read it over, I see that this could be misconstrued. What I really meant was da da da. And then you say, oh, well, that's fantastic news, etc. So that's the communication side. Now, of course, this house also rules transportation, and so you might be looking for a new vehicle at this time, or your vehicle needs some tender loving care. You also want to look at, you know, your tags and see if they accidentally, you know, like if you forgot they expired and you accidentally didn't send the money in to get your updated registration. If you work in something that requires transportation, like a delivery service or something like that, you could do quite well at this time because that energy is highlighted. Or maybe you're just starting out in those one of those delivery services, in which case I recommend that you go on YouTube and find some experienced people who will tell you, you know, what kind of orders to take and what to watch out for. Huge amount of free information for you just at your fingertips. This new moon also is in being in the third house is about siblings and neighbors. And so if you know, with siblings, maybe you're getting together with a sibling you haven't seen in a while. With neighbors, here's an opportunity to heal something that's been an issue in the past. You might be seeing this neighbor more often and get a chance to talk to them about their barking dogs or where they put their trash cans or something like that. So this is an opportunity to use this energy to your benefit. When it comes to relationships, the interesting energy here is, you know, it's pulling energy from that Mercury in your fourth house, and a lot of your planets are below the horizon, and therefore you're really hard to be seen. And so that means that you have to do extra if you are looking for love. You have to do something in your profile or your pictures or something to make them really stand out. What I would suggest is to change them often, you know, cycle in different pictures, make sure that you're wearing bright colors in your pictures, use expressive language in your profile, maybe go online and see other people's profiles and say, what do I like about that profile? What do I don't? And how can I incorporate this in my own? Now, Mercury is not making an aspect to Neptune, and it's not making an aspect to Jupiter. And so there is that issue that, you know, the timing's off. You know, you might meet the person but not be able to connect. But Jupiter is making this big transition. So while you may feel like, I really have to find somebody now, just give it a moment, because Jupiter will shift signs, at least briefly, and this is going to give you more luck, more opportunities. You're going to find that things are easier. So this is the chart that represents the next 2 weeks, but actually Jupiter shifts signs in a couple of days, and so you may feel it sooner. When we read the chart, though, we're reading the energy from this, which says you're feeling stressed about this, and if you can back off of that stress and take more of the meditative approach, you will be happier. When it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Mars in your house of risky investments. So I always like to see that, you know, the planet that's pulling money is in a money house. That's fantastic. This is that house of creativity and taking risks. And so even if this isn't about, in this case, about a risky investment, it is about taking a bold action towards something. And so that is taking the risk of putting your creativity out in the marketplace, or to, say to your friends and family, this is the services I'm offering, or to start your business. So it doesn't, in this case, have to be this huge endeavor. The Mars in this place just says take the chance of doing this. Now, Mars in Cancer is interesting because it can take things quite personally, and so you have to be aware that you might take what other people say in a very personal manner when it isn't personal. When you say to someone, please give me your honest opinion, and then they do, and then you say, I didn't want you to be that honest. So look at it as, okay, am I taking this too personally? Are they giving me really helpful information so I can make some changes to make my product or service better? And this is typified by the Mars at 11 degrees, which we talked about at the beginning. If you didn't watch the introduction part, if you skipped right to this part, you might want to skip back to that, because we talked about the master number 11, and this Mars making that exact square to Chiron. So that is, if you go out and say, tell me your honest opinion, then a spontaneous healing takes place in your house of money. You will be able to make more money, but you have to withstand what you're going to feel about it. Like if you say, oh, my feelings are really hurt, or how dare they say that, or even the flip side, oh, you're only being complimentary about this because you're my friend or my mother or whatever. If you really look at this objectively, you can get such a healing and remove blocks to money by using this energy. When it comes to money that is coming from investments or from your business, it's pulling energy from that Venus right at the base of your chart, which could mean that you are making some money from real estate or some sort of family heirlooms or the family business or something like that. Venus is not making an aspect with Mars, and so the profits that you're making may not be as strong this time. So there might be more of the promise of profits. That was hard to say. Promise of profits, and rather than the actual money in your hand. So maybe you're putting some land up for sale, and so that's going to sell at some point, or it did sell, but you still have to wait 30 days to receive the check or something like that. So there are definitely some prospects for making some money, but I'm not seeing necessarily the cash in hand. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, you have some truly interesting energy this time. So we've been talking about the Saturn in the 12th as being working behind the scenes and a little bit hidden, but this Saturn is making an inconjunct to that Mars, and that means if you make an adjustment, then you can make more money in your career. So what could that look like? That could be you taking a position that maybe you think is more challenging, that maybe takes more confidence. It could mean that you are adjusting your hours, or that you are now not working at home, that you have to work in the office, or now that you are going to just work at home, or that you are working on a project that is maybe less prestige and maybe even a little less interesting, but it's going to bring you more money. This is also very typified, this type of aspect, with working an odd shift and getting a shift differential, or where you are maybe picking up a second job or additional hours. So you're really working hard, and so that doesn't feel good, but the paycheck feels nice. Now, when it comes to risky investments, we already talked a little bit about that Mars going through that house. And so if you are considering the riskier investments, which you really might be because Mars is traveling through there, that this is your time to investigate the information, because your house of risky investments is pulling energy from that moon in your house of information and contracts. Now, the moon and Mars are not making an aspect, and that's a little bit of an issue here. So that is, you're collecting information, but you don't know yet if that information actually applies. And how that might manifest is that, you put the ad out to sell your business, you get a lot of people who are interested, but they don't really have the money, the business isn't in the right location, or worse, they're trying to sell you something. So try not to get too excited with all the response you're getting. It may not pan out just yet. Now, of course, this energy will line up better in the future, but right now it says that that things may not be exactly, they're not smooth, they're not flowing. And so this is more about just collecting information, looking over contracts, not necessarily signing yet. And I know that can be difficult because we have Mercury retrograde coming up, we have 2 eclipses coming up, which we will have videos about. But it does say that it can be difficult to really get involved in something truly risky right now. And so you're more in the information gathering stage. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And stay tuned because LaRue wants to say hi.